In this video, I'm going to show you how to build your very own Trello clone entirely with AI without any technical experience in under 1 hour. We're going to completely mimic the design on Trello, so you can create detailed tasks, track your progress by moving cards between columns, and we're going to do all of this without any technical experience and without writing a single prompt. We're going to build and plan out our entire app. We're going to create detailed instructions with AI to help us actually build it, letting the AI figure out the tech that's needed for each of these features. So all you need to do is download it and give all of this context to Cursor so it will build it for us without any technical knowledge. I'm then going to show you how to get your app deployed on its own working domain, so you can have your very own Trello clone built in under 1 hour. So let's do a quick demonstration of what you'll have built if you follow this course. I'm going to give my task a brief title and a small description. I'm going to give it a label and assign it to my editor. We're going to pick a due date to be probably sometime next week and set the priority to high. Then we're just going to create the card, and just like that, we have our task created. We're going to move it to the top of the to-do list. So we can now view any of the tasks. We can see the status, the priority, the assignee, the due date, and also the description. We can edit that description, and we can also leave comments. Once a task has got started, we can move it to in progress or even into in review. So let's dive straight into this tutorial. So in order to build a Trello-like clone, we need to go ahead and obviously start with a plan. So we're going to come into our CodeSpring account and we're going to create a new project and we're going to call it Trello Clone. Now I'm just going to list out the basic features of Trello, what I want our app to do so we can try and mimic this in the best way possible. So we're going to have different columns, we're going to have cards within each of these columns that we can drag between, and if we get time we'll try and build this pop-up so we can actually go ahead and write in notes. So to start off with, if we just come into CodeSpring, I've already planned this out just to make it a little bit quicker for us, but I'll walk you through the steps. We're going to have 3 separate columns. We're going to have to-do list, we're going to have in progress, and we're going to have completed. Then we're going to be able to add a new card to any column. We're going to be able to drag and drop cards between columns, click a card to open a pop-up, edit a card, pop-up, and obviously delete a card. We're going to get rid of the persist data for the moment. We're not going to worry about databases or storage in this specific tutorial. And then for now, we're just going to go ahead and click on generate with AI. So what this is going to do is it's going to plan out the app. The AI is going to analyze the requirements of our specific project. And this is typically a prompt that you would probably give to Lovable or Cursor, but we're going to give it to CodeSpring first because it's going to figure out the technical stuff on what our app is going to do, how it's going to work, and then it's going to create the instructions for building each of these individual features using a specific template. So now it's planned out the app, it's going to define the build strategy. I'm just going to fast forward this. This can take anywhere between 1 minute to 2 or 3 minutes. It's using the top of the line reasoning models, and it's got various agents reading the template that it's going to be using to help us build our app. Okay, so it's now moving on to actually reading the boilerplate, and I'm going to show you how the boilerplate works in a minute. But basically every single feature that we build for our app, all of the instructions that we create with CodeSpring on how to build it, are all going to be lined up and in line with that boilerplate. So it's going to work basically just with a couple of clicks. It should be incredibly simple to build. So it's now figuring out the tech stack that's required in order to get it built. This is going to be both for just generally what the app needs, but also feature specific tech as well. Cool. So just like that, it's gone ahead and it's created us our Trello clone, and we're just going to open up this mind map. So I want to take a second just to talk about the CodeSpring tech stack and how it figures it all out, because a lot of the reasons why what you're building with AI isn't working is mostly down to the fact that the tech that you are putting together for your app doesn't all integrate very well, right? And CodeSpring figures all the tech out for you, and you can see here it's actually come up with something called D&D kit, right, which is actually the drag and drop functionality, and you can actually read a little bit about what it does. So the drag and drop library enabling the card movement across columns. So this is going to be this specific feature where we want to drag cards between columns. CodeSpring's already figured out the tech that's required in order to do that, and it's also given us a step-by-step guide on how we would go ahead and integrate this into our app. So really useful stuff to get started. And again, like if you're a complete beginner, you're not going to know this technical stuff. If you are a bit of an expert, you can obviously add your own tech for this as well. So let's just have a look through here and see what it's actually come up with. So it's taken all of those features, but it's gone one step further and it's described how those features should be built. So for example, we've got the column structure. We're going to have 3 columns: to do, in progress, and completed. We're going to have a card section, so we can create a new task, card in any column via a form button, drag and drop, card pop-up and editing, and delete card. Those are the basic features we're going to get started with building in this specific tutorial. So if we actually walk through this, we can actually see in CodeSpring it's already actually started to plan out things like user journey and what's going to go into these different features. So to start off with, for the column structure, it defines 3 distinct columns. We've got to do, in progress, and completed for organizing tasks visually in a Kanban board layout. I'm happy with that. User journey and workflow, user lands on the dashboard showing 3 empty columns. Tasks populate their respective columns based on status. User can visually scan tasks tasks by column. It's gone ahead and looked at the technical implementation, so we're going to use the app router. That's up to date. If you don't understand this, I'll walk you through it when we're actually building the technical stuff to serve the main board stage. It's actually talking about using Drizzle RRM for the database, to saving and pulling things in for the database, which is really cool. And it's talking about using D&D kit. And this is a key functionality, a key feature of CodeSpring is in the tech stack, when it figures out the tech that's needed, it's also going to refer to that tech inside the notes for each individual feature. Okay, so you can see it's actually reasoning through this and it's saying, okay, well, based on this tech that we've got, this is how we're actually going to put it together. So this is all stuff you'd have to write down yourself. Now we've got a to-do list section here, so we can actually come in and we can view this and, you know, we can tick off to-do lists. I'll show you a little bit more about that in a second. I'm just going to skim through these, but for adding a new card, what have we got over here? So overview and purpose allows users to create a new task card in any of these three columns via UI control. So the user clicks add card button at the top of a column. That makes sense, like add card like that, and we're going to go ahead and add a card. It appears requesting title and operation notes. So we're just going to go ahead and delete that. We're just going to say we just want the title in there. User submits the form, a new card appears in chosen column. So I think we're just going to adjust this, and we're just going to say here, it will create a new card in that column, and then user, and we're just going to write in here, enters the name of the card into the card. I think we're happy with that. Technical implementation and core mechanics, implement Next.js server, blah, 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 use collect.dev to ensure the user is authenticated. That's fine. Render shadcn. So again, shadcn here is we are using this for UI. So if you don't know what shadcn is, it doesn't matter too much if you're a beginner, but basically if we look at the tech stack over here, somewhere in this shadcn here, you can see we're actually talking about the UI components and styling. And again, it's using that inside each of the notes. If you'd like to get access to a CodeSpring subscription, by the way, the link is down below in the description. But now we can have a look at the drag and drop card. So we just want to skim through this and add additional notes and make sure we're describing each of the features in the way that we would want. You know, CodeSpring is going to do a pretty good job of figuring it out for us, but the more information that we put, the closer it's going to be to what we have in our head, and that's the key differentiator. So user clicks and holds a card, card becomes draggable, user moves it over to another column or position. We're going to put in here D&D kit. Now we wouldn't know this if it wasn't for CodeSpring, but obviously over here, wherever it was in this part, it explained D&D kit, and it actually explained how that works up here. So we now know that we're going to be using D&D kit to drag everything around between columns. You can see it's actually figuring it out, and it's making sure that that makes sense with all of our other features. And that's another reason why when you're building just without some sort of planner like CodeSpring, you're going to end up running into bugs and errors because there's not like a consistent tech stack throughout it. And then finally, we've got things like card pop-up and delete card, but I think we're kind of happy with that for now. So what you want to do at this point is you really want to spend a little bit of time thinking through, is this exactly what you want to build, and adding details and context on how you want each of those features to work. I'm going to show you the lazy way of building, but obviously the more information we put in at each step, the better the result's going to be. Now we can actually come into CodeSpring and we have what we're calling the progress board. And inside here, we actually have a backlog of all the different tasks that we need to do. So we've got the column structure, we've got add new card, drag and drop cards, a card pop-up and editing, delete card, and then obviously we've got a load of competitors, which we're not particularly interested in. But basically here, these are all the sections of the different parts of the different features we need to do. So once we get started on something, we can move it into a different section. So you can see I've actually already built out Kanban board, Trello style thing already in CodeSpring. But this is a way for us to actually track what's left to do in our app. But we'll come back to that in a second, because now what we need to do is actually get set up and start building this app. So if we come into the CodeSpring course and come over to assets, we can just copy the template. And like I say, all of that description and all of this generation from the CodeSpring mind map is based off this template here. So if you're using CodeSpring, it's all going to work together. And we're going to come into Cursor. Now, in this video, I'm not going to describe how to download Cursor and set up Node.js and all of those other things. You can watch those tutorials all over the internet. I'm here to show you how to actually use these tools to actually build. So we're actually going to do something a little bit special in this one, because we're going to go ahead and we're actually going to try and use Claude Code in order to make this even quicker. So first of all, we're going to come into the chat and we're going to say clone, and we're going to paste the boilerplate, and we're going to call this Trello clone, and I'm going to click on enter, and it's going to go ahead and it's going to clone us the Trello clone, and you can see that folder here. And basically you can see I've got a folder called app builds, and essentially all we're doing here is we are just, each folder is the app that we're currently working on. So we want to just make things a little bit easier for us. So we're going to go to open folder. I'm going to come into my app builds, and you can see Trello clone is there. So we're just going to go ahead and open it up. So we're going to open a new terminal, and we're just going to come into here and we're going to write npm install. And what this is going to do is it's going to install all the packages and everything that's required in order to make this app work, right? And you don't need to worry too much about this. Every single time you use the CodeSpring CodeSpring template, you're going to go ahead and do exactly the same steps, but all the modules inside the CodeSpring Academy are going to teach you how to do all of this stuff anyway. And now what we're going to do is write npm run dev, okay? Now I know using the terminal can be quite complicated and confusing if you're a complete beginner. So if you're following along this tutorial with your CodeSpring account, obviously just go ahead and do exactly as I am doing, and then obviously you're going to get, it shouldn't be a problem for you. And what this is going to do is it's going to create localhost. Now, if you've never actually coded or built anything before, built an app before, localhost is basically a place for us to actually sort of simulate the app running on the web, okay? Because we're building web apps with CodeSpring. So we're just going to open this link here, and if we actually go to localhost 3000, it's essentially like going to a URL for your app. And if you're using a CodeSpring boilerplate, there's already a website built with a template app already created for us. Now, all we need to do now is actually go ahead and sign into our account. So if we go to sign in, you can see we've already got this set up for us. So we're just going to go ahead and I think I've actually already got an account for this. And there's a full tutorial on how to get all of this sign-in stuff set up inside CodeSpring. So like I said, if you want to grab a CodeSpring subscription, the link for that is down below. And then it's going to take us inside the CodeSpring template dashboard. And this is where the bulk of our app is going to be. So you can see how in just a few seconds, we've already got the basic part of our app already built, which is really cool. Okay, great. So now we've actually got the boilerplate up and running. What we need to do now is create the instructions for each of the individual features that we're trying to build. So to do this, I'm going to first come into our boilerplate, and we're going to come into the navigation panel on the left-hand side, and we're going to create a new folder, and we're going to call this PRD, and then we're going to create a new file by clicking top left up here. I'm going to call this the name of our first feature, which is going to be column structure. So we're going to call this columns. Something like that, MD. Okay, give it the name of the feature that you want to call it, and then we're going to do another one called add new card, and we're just going to do that for each of these features. So add new card.md, and then we're going to do drag and drop cards.md. What else do we need? We need card pop-up and editing, so we're going to call this card pop-up MD, and we also need the delete card. So create another one, we're going to call this delete card. .md, okay, and these are going to be our individual product requirement docs in order to get this specific app built. So how do we get these requirement docs? Well, we could just come into Cursor and we could start typing and say, please build me this specific feature and describe how it works. But because we're using CodeSpring, we can actually come along to each of these individual things, and because it's already planned out the overview of that feature and it's planned out the to-do list of what stuff needs to be done, plus we've got all the context of the tech that's needed to build it, we can literally just come onto each of these, and if we click on this plus button, there's a button that will generate us a requirement doc. So it's actually going to generate us a PRD for the column structure. Now you can see this starts to get a little bit confusing once we've got a load of nodes and stuff in here, but I'll show you a way that makes it easier to actually look at. So we're going to do this first of all for our column structure. So this is the Trello columns section, and there we go. So you can see it's created us the requirement doc, and the requirement doc has got a load of information on how to actually build this feature. So we've got overview, right? The column structure defines 3 distinct columns to do in progress, and we can actually edit it so we can make changes to it if we want to. So 3 distinct columns we've got to do, in progress, completed, for organizing tasks visually in a Kanban board layout. I'm just going to click on save on this, and then we can see API endpoints and server actions. So it's actually going to create server actions in order to build this. And if you don't understand what those are, don't worry about it, because I'll show you how that works in just a second. It's also got the structure of the UI. Okay, so we're actually going to create a new folder called column structure, and actually what we're going to do is I'm just going to edit this because I don't want that specifically. We're going to come into here and we're just going to call this Kanban like that, Kanban. And we don't actually want this one, so we're just going to delete that. We're going to have columns, and then we're going to have the, we're going to call this actually Kanban column, and we're going to come down here, and you don't have to do this, just for sake of this tutorial, it makes it a little bit easier. We're going to have a Kanban card, and we're going to save that. Cool, so we've got a new design. So basically what we're going to have now, these are individual components. So for example, the Kanban column will be this thing here, this yellow thing here, and then the Kanban card will be this thing here that we drag in between. I don't know what's going on with Trello. Trello seems to have broken. Hopefully the one that we build will be better. And then obviously it's got some other tech about how this is going to go together. So I'm pretty happy with that now. So we're just going to leave that there for the moment. We're going to move that out of the way. And then guess what we're going to do? Well, actually tell you what we'll do is we'll come into here and we'll just copy this. And we're going to come into the Trello columns, and we're just going to paste it in like that. And you can see we've now got 70, 89, 85 lines showing us exactly how to build that specific feature with all the details and tech on how to get it built, which is really cool. So we're going to continue this process for each of them. So add new card, going to come into here and click on generate PRD. And one thing that's really cool with CodeSpring is if, for example, I decide at some point that I want to change my requirement doc, or I'm not sure about that feature, or there's something different, rather than having to wrestle with cursor to actually build the new feature, we could just come into here and we can move this out of the way. We could type out more information in this notes panel about that specific feature, then come back and just click on this button here, which will retrain the requirement doc. So you can see here the add new card has been done. So let's just have a look at this and see if this works. We've got feature, add new card. So we can add a new card, enables users to create a new task card in any of the 3 columns via simple UI control. So this enhances task management. So as a user, I want to click the add card button at the top of the column so I can create a new task in that column, right? Add a button labeled add card, rendered at the top. Clicking the button opens a modal for adding a task card. The modal includes the input for the task name. Upon submission, the new card is added to the correct column. The modal closes automatically upon successful creation. Cool, I'm happy with that. Technical implementation, database stuff. We're actually going to go into this and edit this because I don't actually want to worry in this tutorial so far about the database, because we're not really going to have to, I mean, you would want to build a database, to be honest with you, otherwise this app's completely useless, but we're just not going to build a database for now. So we've got, let's just save that, and we're just going to double check API endpoints. So we've got add cards, so that's cool. And then here, we're just going to write a note. We are not including adding to a database for now. That's fine. So I just said we're going to add a database later, and hopefully Claude Code will figure that out for us. Component structure, right? So add the following components. So here we've got components, and it's created a new folder for the cards, which I don't really want to do. So again, in the previous one, we can actually come back and have a look at this, but you can see here we created a folder called Kanban, okay, and I'll walk you through why we're doing this and where this is going to go, but we're just going to come into here. You don't necessarily have to do this. This is just personal preference that on how I develop, because obviously I know what I'm doing with this stuff. So we're going to have an add card button, add card modal, and then add card form. I don't think we need a form. We just need the add card modal. And this file here is a specific UI feature. So you see all these buttons down here on the left-hand side. Everything that I'm interacting here is a component, okay? So I've got a different component for a different thing, and I just want to describe what I want that to do and what I want it to look like. I think everything else here is fine. So it's actually, the really cool thing about CodeSpring is it thinks about edge cases, it thinks about error handling, it thinks about problems that could crop up in the future. So we're just going to click on save on that. We're going to copy the add new card product requirement doc. We're going to come into here and we're going to paste that in there. And again, we've got 85 lines of detailed description on how to build it. And I think we've got the drag and drop cards, which is the next one we'll focus on. So we'll probably just do these first 3, and then we'll see how much time it takes to do that. And then either we'll do this in a second tutorial, or we'll just make this a really long video. So you can see, I know it feels like it's taking a lot of time to do, but as somebody who can't develop, or somebody who's not a developer or a coder, you would have to write out all of this stuff yourself, and you're probably going to make mistakes on the description of the technical stuff, or even if you were able to do the technical stuff, you're going to have to spend a long time writing out all of these documents as well. So this is going to save you a huge amount of time. We're just going to come into here, user stories. Let's just have a quick skim read. This all seems okay. Technical implementation, we're going to get rid of the database schema. We don't want that. I'm going to say in here, for now, we are not including saving cards or anything to a database. So again, it's got the components. It's created drag and drop. That's fine, but I'm just going to call this Kanban, and we're going to have the drag and drop board. It's got column and card. We don't need that stuff because we've already got those in the other ones. We've just got card, and then we're just going to write down here, we only need to build a single card component, as the other boards, columns, etc. already built in the other PRDs. And I think that's probably everything. And then again here, dependencies and integrations, it's included D&D kit, which is for the drag and drop functionality. So let's save that. Let's copy this. And before we leave, we're just going to save this entire project. We don't want to lose all of these requirement docs. So we're going to click on save. And while that's saving, we're going to come back to the, where is it? Drag and drop cards.md. And we're going to paste this in here. And then we're going to click on save. Cool. So now we actually need to go ahead and get started building. We've got all of the building blocks that we need to start building these features. The one thing that we can do now is actually come into the progress board, and you can see here for each of these different features, we can now see we've got requirement docs already generated. So I think to start off with, we need to actually set on the column structure. So we're going to drag this into the to-do column so we can actually start working on this. And if we actually click on this, we can see in a different view the notes and the to-do list and everything for that specific thing that we're working on. It just makes it a little bit easier for us to start building. So if we wanted to, we could come into here and we could recopy this and we could paste it in. But now we can actually keep organized on what we're currently working on. So actually I'm going to drag it into the in progress, and we're going to put the add new card and the drag and drop in the to-do columns because we're going to focus on those next. And we'll do this one now. Currently that's in progress. Okay, so now we actually need to go ahead and start building the Trello clone, which is the really exciting part. But this bit should be really quick, really easy. We're not going to have to worry too much about it because I'm going to show you exactly how to use these requirement docs to make it quick and easy. But I did forget one thing, because we've created a requirement doc for each of the individual features. One other step is we want to actually create like a requirement doc which explains the app that we're building, but it's got to give it more like contextual detail. So if we actually click this button down here for generate requirement doc, it's going to generate us a overall project plan. Okay, so I've already done this. So if we come to the PRD, we can scroll down here, and this will probably change when you're using the app, but there's a full description of the app that we're doing. It's got a little bit of information in here about, you know, the different database stuff, the actions, the components, all of that stuff. But what we're going to do is we're actually just going to come into our PRD folder. I'm going to call this project plan MD, and we're going to paste this in here. Okay, and we're going to save that. Cool. So now here's the really fun part. Let's get started building. So come to terminal and new terminal. Now what I'm about to do is use Claude Code. Some of you guys may know of Claude Code, some of you guys may not, but essentially if you come onto Google, this here is Claude Code, and essentially it's the same as Cursor, just significantly better, but it's very expensive. So I'm paying $100 per month to use this. The steps that I'm going through, if you get a CodeSpring subscription down below in the description, it's not very expensive. All the courses in here are going to show you how to do exactly what I'm about to do, but using Cursor. But in this video, I want to use Claude Code because it's going to make it quicker, and I think a lot of people are interested in using Claude Code, but it's exactly the same steps. So in order to get started, we're just going to initiate Claude. So we're just going to do Claude in the terminal here. Okay, and what this is going to do is it's going to boot up Claude Code, which is, and you can see here I've got a little input. This is exactly the same as the input I have up here for Cursor, right? So we're just going to go ahead and close this out a little bit. We're just going to come into here, and the first thing we're going to do is do /init. And again, don't worry too much about what I'm doing here, but basically this is going to create a document called claude.md, and this claude.md file is essentially going to explain what this project is that we are trying to build. And the really cool thing is, because it's got all of these documentations in there now, it's going to create an additional document that's going to explain how to build this whole feature, but integrated with all of the other files in our app, right? So you can see how spending a little bit of time, like 20 minutes, 15 minutes on pre-planning using CodeSpring, this is going to become so much quicker and so much easier to build. So I just want to show you something that's really cool about Claude Code, and obviously using Claude Code alongside CodeSpring, is Claude Code will actually create us to-do lists. Okay, it will create us tasks of what to do, and it will do this if you don't give it requirement docs, but it can get confused and it can just make mistakes, right? So what it's actually doing here is it's actually reading these product requirement doc files. I haven't told it to. It's actually found these files, and it's actually figuring out that we're already building a Trello clone. I haven't told it. It's just because this documentation is now in the context of our app, which is really cool. So now it's going to create that claude.md file with all of the information on the app that we're trying to build, and it's going to figure out the structure on how to build it, which means we can literally just give each of these files to Claude Code, and it's going to just build it for us. So when we come back to our app here, okay, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to see, hopefully, everything show up in this part of the app. Now we're going to have to give it a little bit of direction. We're just going to click on yes, and don't ask me again in this session. And you can see it's now created this claude.md file. And if we just actually have a look in here, it's already created, you know, a breakdown of the project structure, you know, component patterns. We're using shadcn, Trello code requirements, so 3 columns. We've got the different features, card pop-up, right? And this is really, really cool. But you can see there's not a huge amount of technical information on how to build these features. So you wouldn't get that with Claude Code. You kind of have to use CodeSpring for that. So let's get started. So we're going to say, please get started building this app. We want to build the Trello clone. What do we want to build first? We probably want to build the columns, don't we? So we probably want to build the Trello columns first. We want to build the Trello clone with, I don't know, building columns first. And actually, if we come into Trello here, they don't have a navigation panel on the left-hand side. Okay, if we actually look at our app, we do. We've got home, settings, all of these other bits and pieces. So we're just going to build it inside the home. Okay, build this in the, and if we come to the app dashboard page, okay, this is the page here, okay, which is this page here. Okay, but if you don't know that, you can just copy this and you can paste it in here, in the page here. Okay, and we're going to do @ and we're just going to, let's just close up all these folders and come into PRD, and it's going to be the Trello columns. So we're going to search for Trello and columns. Okay, so please get started building this app. We want to build a Trello clone with building the columns first. Let's build this in the dashboard page. Here are the instructions on how to build it from CodeSpring. We're actually going to go one step further. We're going to press Shift Tab, and we're going to put this back into plan mode. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use our plan, and we're going to get Claude Code to expand that plan, and then it's going to execute that plan. So it's not actually going to write any code yet. It's just going to read through those instructions, and it's going to figure out how to actually build that feature for us. So we're just going to let that think for a second. You can see here it's coming up with a plan already on how it needs to create that, and we're just going to let this run through. I'll fast forward this, and then you can see the result at the end. But just to have a look at this, right, while this is actually working, because I think this is quite useful, because a lot of people would miss this stuff. If you just go into Cursor, or if you're using Lovable, for example, and you can use these documents in Lovable or Replit, for example, but I use Cursor. If you use that, then what's going to happen is you're going to say, well, build me a Trello clone. I want to have columns. You don't know where those columns are going to go. You can have loads of security problems, but CodeSpring's obviously now created us all the descriptions on how it's going to create all this stuff for us. And now Claude Code has taken that and it said, right, well, we've got these instructions here. Let's expand upon that and let's actually go ahead and create us all the stuff. And you can see here, it's actually predicted a little bit further ahead, the Kanban card component. So we're just going to say yes. Let's get started and start building. So now what it's going to do is it's going to create a step-by-step plan on actually creating everything. So it says here, do we want to install D&D kit, right? And remember, D&D kit here, I know this looks terrifying, but if we come into CodeSpring and we go over to our tech stack, D&D kit, this bit here is obviously the thing for the drag and drop, right? And we wouldn't know that if we weren't using CodeSpring. So you can see here, it's created us that folder. And this is a really cool thing with using CodeSpring requirement docs, is we don't have to worry about the technical stuff. And I know I'm walking through and I'm explaining to you what each of these folders do, what each of these files do. But realistically, if you're a complete beginner, you don't have to know this stuff, because CodeSpring is going to manage all that thought process for you, because it's obviously used with the CodeSpring boilerplate. All of this is going to work basically straight off the bat. We shouldn't actually run into any problems. And if we do, it should be quite easy to fix, because we've got all of these documentations here. So it's created us so far the Kanban board component, and this is basically all of the code. You can see here we've got different columns. We've got to do, we've got in progress, we've got completed, and now it's created the Kanban columns. Okay, so the Kanban board, if we come into Trello, will be probably this whole background section here, and then we're going to have all of these different columns, and then what it'll do is actually create us the cards. Okay, and this is obviously going to be the card that's going to go into each of these columns. Now what it's going to do is update the page so we can actually have the Kanban board in there. So we should see this refresh in a second, and if all goes well, hopefully we should have everything showing up in here. We should have multiple columns in here. And there we go. It literally has created us already those columns. Okay. Now if we actually drag it, we can see we're already able to drag them between, and it's just gone ahead and it's instantly copied the description of everything that we need. It's already created that for us in one hit. So straight away, we've already got the first columns already built. We've already got the cards already built. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to come back into our CodeSpring progress board, and we're just going to column structure, have a look at our notes and to-do list, and see if there's anything that we've missed before we go on to the next step. Okay, so let's just have a look at the notes. The user journey lands this through different columns. We've already got that set up interaction. So I think we've already done this. If we have a look at the to-do list, define the column schema, we're going to tick that off because we're not actually doing the database for now. Create the server action to fetch columns, we don't need to do that. Again, if we come into this folder here, it would create us some actions on pulling stuff from the database, but just for the sake of this video, we're not going to worry about that. Maybe I'll do a follow-up video if you guys are interested. Just comment down below if you want me to do a follow-up on adding the database. The database, by the way, has already been built into the, you can see here, we've already got some of the database built using a CodeSpring boilerplate anyway. Column list is done, integrate D&D kit's done, test rendering with mock data is done. So I think we can put this into the completed column, and now let's do the add new card, because what we want to do is in our boards at the moment there's no way of adding a new card. We've just got these things, and there's a couple of bugs, like when we click on something it disappears. So we're just going to come into here and say great, let's now work on the section to add new cards. Follow this PRD, and we're going to click on the add new card. Okay, and this is this document here, which again, if we come into our CodeSpring account, add new card is the requirement doc here. Okay, so this is going to explain exactly what we want to do and how we want it to work. So for context, if you guys forgot, I want to click an add card button at the top of the column to create a new task. Okay, so it's going to create this button labeled add card. Clicking the button opens a modal. The modal includes an input field for the task name to submit a task. Okay, and then we're going to put in here also, when I click a card, And what we can actually do is we can do at Kanban, and you can see here, right, Kanban card, this one down here is the actual component for the card. When I click on a card, it vanishes from the at Kanban column. And you don't need to do this, but it's a good practice to get into because it means you understand what each of the files do. So we're just going to click on enter, and so hopefully now we're just going to sit back and relax and it should build this feature for us. So it looks like it is now creating the add card component. So we can see here it's got the add card modal, the add card button, update Kanban column to include the add card button. So we should be able to see in a second a button for adding the cards. And there we go. You can see the add card has literally just created, and it's creating us a pop-up. Now, we may not want a pop-up. I don't know. It really depends on how you want to build it, but that's what we wrote into the CodeSpring plan to create as pop-ups. Okay, so now let's give it a go. We're just going to do test and test. I don't know if this description is going to work because we aren't actually building the pop-up for that yet, but you can see it's created that test. So it's actually put the description in there as well. So we can say to do, we've got new to-do list task. And then we've got task description here, add card. There we go to the task description. So pretty simple. Cool. So we can come back to our CodeSpring. What have we got left to do? So add new card, that's now completed. Let's just double check if we come back into here in the notes. Is there anything else we missed? No. Okay, we just want that at the bottom. So to-do list, design the add card to each column, build the modal. So obviously that modal, right, that it's described is this pop-up here. So if we don't want this pop-up, we would have come into here, into our PRD, wherever it talks about the modal, and we would have, described something different, right? Modal component, we would have changed that, and we would have, explained that we don't want that to happen. And you can always do that, right? What else have we got to do? That one we did create server action. We're not doing that one. Handle optimistic UI, write integration tests. Cool. So we're done on all of that. The next thing we do is the drag and drop cards. So we build a task by dragging cards between columns. Now we've actually kind of already built this stuff, but let's just give it to Claude Code anyway. So now we're just going to do drag and drop cards, and we're going to send that through. We're not even going to write a description. We're just going to give it that requirement doc and see if it can make any changes. And you can see how quick and simple it is. Now obviously this is a very basic YouTube video. I'm not trying to build like a full app here. I'm just trying to build something very, very simple. But I want to show you how you can build something quickly and simply just by using CodeSpring, and you can get it out there because now we have a website, we have something that people can sign up to, and they can start creating their boards. I'll show you in a second how we can sort of give this a much better UI design by using Cursor, and then I'm going to show you how to actually deploy this. If you guys want to see another video on how to actually integrate the database and all of that, go ahead and leave it down below in the comments. But if you would like to get access to a CodeSpring subscription, the link is down below in the description. It is pay up front, just because we use some of the top of the line language models. It's incredibly expensive for us to run, but as you can see, it's going to save a huge amount of credits when you're building with AI, and a lot of battling and wrestling with getting things built. Now, while this is going on, we're actually going to go to GitHub, okay? And we're going to create, if you haven't got a GitHub account, you want to go ahead and create a new GitHub account. There's loads of videos on how to do it on YouTube, but this is now actually getting things ready to set up for a deployment. So we're going to go ahead and click on new, and we're going to call this Kanban clone. I'm going to set it to private, and we're just going to click on create repo. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to do this at the same time as that's going on. So in here we've got, AI is currently coding out the features, but while it's doing that, we're just going to Command K. Okay, and if you're watching this, just copy exactly what I'm doing if you're following along. So unlink this code base from the current hub repo. So unlink this code base from the current GitHub repo, and then we're going to come into here and we're going to remove all the GitHub commit history from this current code base. And now we're going to come into this, we're going to do copy, and we're going to say, paste that in here. We're going to say, now link this code base to this new GitHub repo. And then we're going to write git push origin main. I think I may have done that wrong. Paste that all in there and just say finish. We've got to commit it. Cool. So what it's going to do now is it's just going to push this all to GitHub. So if we refresh this page, we have all of this code on GitHub. We have, if you come into here, we can see it's the exact file, stuff that we're working on here, because it's got this PRD folder. And this is basically now means we've got everything on GitHub. And that just means now, because it's on GitHub, if we make any new features, we're not going to lose any progress. So now that's done, let's just come into here and we can just see it's finished the drag and drop stuff, but obviously there's nothing new that it's created because it already existed. The only thing I would like to do is actually click the whole card and drag it, and I want to change the UI. So we're actually going to come into Dribble. If you go to dribble with 3bs.com, you can search for Kanban, okay, or Trello. And let's just do Kanban. And we're just going to take a screenshot of one of them, which maybe has a nice, I think this looks pretty good. So we're just going to screenshot this. And we're actually going to now use Cursor. So we're going to drag this image, because we can't give this image, I don't think, to Claude Code. And we're just going to say at Kanban, okay, and what we're going to do is we're just going to tag each of the Kanban components. So Kanban card, we've got Kanban board and Kanban column. Okay, so in our app, we've got the board, which is the background. We've got the cards, which are these bits here. And we're going to say, please, can you mimic the UI in the image, make our current Kanban setup look nicer, give it a better, okay? And for this, we're going to use Claude 4 Sonnet, just because it's very good at you. We're going to send that through. So I appreciate in this video, it's been quite long, but I wanted to go into more detail than in the last video that I did, where a lot of you guys said I was going too fast. So hopefully this has made a little bit more sense for all of you guys. What we could do is we could come into CodeSpring now, and we're just going to come into the card pop-up and editing. So that's number 4, which is this one here. And we're just going to read this. So what I want to do is I want to have a pop-up, and I want to split it into 2/3. On the left-hand side and on the right-hand side, we're going to have some sort of comments and activity. And when we leave a note, it's going to give us the name of the person that's logged in. On the left-hand side, we want the title and also a description that we can go ahead and write. So we're going to come into here and we're just going to click on, let's save this. And if you come into context, right, you can see that it's actually using 2 different nodes. It's using 2 bits of context to create this requirement doc. It's using this card pop-up and editing and also this here. So what we can do now is actually retrain, which is going to have the up-to-date information. So hopefully now we can just give it to the AI and it can create the new stuff for us. So what I've done now is obviously last we left the AI, we were telling it to kind of mimic and create this design, this better design. So let's see what it's been able to do. You can see here, instantly straight away, we've got a much better design. Cool, we can drag things around, looks really cool. Excellent. Obviously, it's put in like, you know, other bits and pieces that we didn't have there before. We can add new cards still. So we're just going to tell it now, mimic this design in the, and we can actually explain the add modal, and it's going to mimic that design in this modal so it all fits and makes sense and works. You can see it's tracking the number of tasks in each column, which is cool. And we're going to come back to CodeSpring, and you can see that the card pop-up and editing PRD has been generated. So we're just going to save that. Copy this, come back into our application. I'm going to come into the PRD folder, and we're going to come into the card pop-up, and we're just going to paste it in here. And then we're going to come back into Claude Code. Oh, it did paste the image. Clearly it does work. So we can come into here and we can say at card pop-up, and we're just going to get it working on that as well. So this is a really cool thing with using Claude Code and Cursor. Cursor is obviously working on the updates and UI changes to the add card modal, while Claude Code is working on fixing all of this stuff. And in the back end, we've obviously got CodeSpring creating us the documentation on how to actually build all this stuff. So let's just come back to our progress board. So what we're going to do now in our progress board is we're going to take the card pop-up and editing. We're just going to put that in the in progress section here. And if we come back into the app, we should see we've got a much better design. So you can see now we can actually add things like description and labels and other bits and pieces. We've got the signees, which we may want to remove, but due date, you know, and it's just creating random bits and pieces. So we'll test card, test description, create the card, did that here. Cool. And what we're working on now is hopefully when we click this, it should open us a pop-up modal that looks kind of like this, which will have, you know, the ability to add notes and all of that stuff. Now, the only thing is obviously Claude has just gone ahead, and this is the problem with Claude Sonnet in Cursor, is it will just go ahead and randomly do stuff. Like, I didn't ask it, it's added the labels here, and it's only done that because of the image that we gave it here, which is, you know, none of that was done. That's the problem, right, if you're not using a requirement doc, okay, because we just said mimic this design, and that's why a lot of the time when you're building without using something like CodeSpring, you end up getting features that you don't actually want. Hopefully, you know, Claude will actually figure out what's already been implemented, and it might be able to integrate those 2 things. While that's still going, we're just going to come to this thing here, okay? So we should have multiple terminals, okay? If you're using Claude Code, you should have a node, which is obviously the Claude Code one up here. We've got node here, which is the npm run dev to actually get the app running. And then ZSH here, we're just going to do clear, which is our terminal. We're just going to do git add. I'm just going to skim through this. This is not a tutorial on how to use GitHub. Git commit -m, and we're just going to call this the latest change that we made to the app, which was added improvements to Kanban. And then do git push, and what this is going to do is it's going to push those latest changes into our GitHub. So we should have an additional commit here now, and you can see added UI improvements to Kanban, okay? And that basically means now if we made a mistake here, we can always roll back and go back a step. So let's just see how Claude Code is getting along. Looks like it's done. So when we just click on this, it should open something, but it's not working. So let's just refresh. So I think what's happening is when we click on a card, it's not opening because it's got the click and drag feature. So when I click on the Kanban card, it's not opening and it created us a new component called the card pop-up. So all I've said here is, look, when I click on that card, it's not opening the pop-up. And I think this is because when we click on it, it wants us, you see the mouse is converting into a drag. It wants us to drag it using D&D kit. But obviously we want to be able to click and open a pop-up. So it's going to fix that for us, and hopefully it's going to work with the drag. Cool, so we can now see if we add a card, we can add in the details, the descriptions, the labels, and we can also click on a card and we can go ahead and edit it. So if we come to, I don't know where it's gone now, but if we create a new card here, we call test, right? We call test description, and we click on bug, for example. We assign John, and the due date is tomorrow, and we said it's a high priority. We can create that card, and it creates tests. Now, obviously, because we haven't created a database, right, that's why that's not showing up. So if we click this now, we've got all of these bits and pieces, but obviously some of it's saved and some of it hasn't, right? So what we could do is we could come into CodeSpring and we could start figuring out a plan for the saving features. And then we can click on Save Changes. We can come into called Test 2, see if it changes that. And we can call this Hello World, see if it changes the description. Click on Save. It's changed it to Test 2. If I click it, it's saved Hello World, right? And that's mostly because these features here, okay, all of these bits and pieces here were added by Claude Sonnet down here, right? They weren't added by us in our plan here. And that's why you should probably avoid, going outside the realms of what you've created here, is always create the features in here and then hand them over to Cursor. So now we've got to go ahead and create a description of how these features work. We've got to feed that back into CodeSpring, which is not too difficult. We can come into here and we can add a card, and we could add some description on how that specific feature works if we want to. Well, I'm not going to bother doing it in this, but you get the idea. We're just going to delete that now. And I'm just going to show you, actually, we're going to go ahead and actually deploy this app. So if we come to something called Vercel.com, create an account and link it to, okay? We're going to click on Add New Project. And you can see here, Kanban Clone. This is the GitHub that we created. If we come to GitHub here, we've got Kanban Clone, Kanban Clone. Okay, so because Vercel is linked to our GitHub, basically what this means is with a one click, we can actually set up this project and get it deployed. Now, if you actually grab a CodeSpring subscription, the link is down below. In the courses and everything, it's going to give you a full course. If we come into here and we do building your first app, there's a 15-lesson course on building and deploying a full note taker. It's much like this one. It goes into a lot more detail though, but it will give you information on how to actually deploy your apps properly, because we need to put in environment variables, which I actually skipped at the beginning of this video just because it's boring and not interesting to most people, but that is actually in this folder, this file down here. So if you click in here, which I'm not going to do because I don't want to leak my keys, we would paste them all in here. So I'm going to do that now. And we're just going to click on deploy. And what this is going to do is it's going to deploy our app for us. So at the moment, template is actually running on localhost 3000. Okay. What this is going to do is it's actually going to run it on a URL, which is going to be vercel.com/something or something.vercel.com, but it'll be an actual URL. So if we just come to template.app, we go to our homepage. Okay, the ultimate template app. Okay, what we can actually do is probably come into Claude Code here, and we could say update the app page, this one here. Okay, update the page and make it sell the Kanban, redesign, and remove any reference to the template app, right? And what we could do is we could actually, spend a little bit of time inside CodeSpring actually planning out, what we want our landing page to look like, and I'll do another video on that later on, but just for the sake of this video, I want to show you an example. So you can see here it's actually failing to deploy this, right? There's a couple of errors that are coming through. Deployment failed. So what we're going to do is just copy this, and once this is done, we're actually going to get Claude Code to fix these deployment errors as well. And what this is not like a difficult thing to deploy. It's literally just because somewhere we've got a quotation in part of the app that we've built, which we just need to fix. And there we go, it's just gone ahead and it's called it Task Flow, organize your work with Task Flow, why teams love Task Flow, visual organization, drag and drop, detailed task management, and it's given it a load of testimonials, for example. The only thing it hasn't done is updated this bit up here from template app, but that's fine. What we're going to do next is we're just going to paste in, right? If we come back to this, we're going to copy this, okay? We're going to paste it in here, and we're literally just going to send that through because this is a really easy bug to fix. And then what it's going to do is hopefully fix it for us. And once that's fixed, right, what you do, the really cool thing is with Vercel is we just commit it to GitHub again, we push it to GitHub, and then it will just automatically push it to Vercel, and then it will redeploy off that latest update. So I'll just give you an example of this. So that should now actually build. So we'll come back into here, and we can just do git commit, and there's quicker ways of doing this GitHub stuff, but that doesn't matter so much. Deploy, let's give it a random name, git push. Cool. And then we're going to come into here and we're just going to click on deploy. What it will do is it will use the last updated thing on GitHub. So if we come into here, refresh, it's now going to use this one here. So you can see now that we've actually linked it to Vercel, we've got this little red cross. all checks are failed, deployment has failed, right? We should see this one go green, and then it should actually be deployed. It's currently trying to deploy this variant on. So every single time you build a new feature using CodeSpring, right? If we have a, by the way, with CodeSpring, you can do as many of these as you want, but every time we build a new feature and we paste one of these into Claude Code and whatever, then, for example, what we'd want to do is push it to GitHub, because then it would create a new one of these, and then it would push the latest version live onto our website. And there we go, congratulations, your app has been deployed. Okay, so it really isn't as hard as you would have thought. So we can just click on this, right? And it will take us to our website. So we now have Organize Your Work with Task Flow on its own domain. You can see here Kanban clone.vercel.app, which is really cool. Now, if you want to learn how to go ahead and actually, sign up and actually sign into your app and make sure it's all working in deployment, then grab a CodeSpring subscription down below in the description. If we come into deployments here, you can see we've actually got this one here called deploy. So what we could do is we could literally just come back into Node, and we could say, for example, into Claude, we could say in the sidebar, right? If we come into our app, come to dashboard, maybe we don't want all of these things here. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to say in the sidebar, we're going to remove everything except home. So all of these things down here, settings, data sources, targets, all of that, we're going to remove that. The only thing we're going to keep is the home section. We're going to keep this because we don't want our deployed app to be having all of these bits in there, because we're not going to build them yet. And if we want to build them, it's really easy. We just come into CodeSpring and we just add in a new feature, and we would say, let's put this feature in a new page, and I can make some tutorials on how you would do that. So now in our app, we've literally just got the home page. Cool, we've now just got that in our apps. Okay, because we're trying to build a simple MVP, we don't really need to overcomplicate it. So now we actually have a deployed app, but we just want to come back into GitHub, right, into our ZSH terminal. We're just going to write git add git commit minus, and you have to include the -m, quotations, and we're going to write in here removed sidebar stuff, and then git push. And what's going to happen is if we come to GitHub, we can refresh the page. It's going to create the new git here, but you can see it's now created us this little orange circle. If we come onto here, we refresh the page. Oh, it's already done it, it needs to refresh. You can see it's now building the removed sidebar stuff. So every time we build a new feature, all we need to do is push it to GitHub, and it will deploy it straight into our app, immediately live. And there we go, just like that, we are now using the most up-to-date version. So if we log into the app, we would only see this. We wouldn't see all the other stuff in the sidebar. So guys, that is a full tutorial on how to go from idea, concept, all the way to getting it actually built and deployed without writing any prompts, just getting CodeSpring to do all of the work. We literally just copy and paste, send it through, and the AI has built it. Now that's taken me about an hour to actually do it. It would have been quicker if I wasn't filming a tutorial, but you can see just how quickly using something like CodeSpring you can whip up an MVP. And that is it. We now have our MVP built. So if you would like to grab a CodeSpring subscription, you can get access to a suite of courses inside the CodeSpring Academy with a full course teaching you how to build a note-taker app and get it fully deployed. And I can tell you it goes into a lot more detail than I went to in this YouTube video here. It's going to show you a lot more about databases, getting those linked, getting those set up, managing deployment, and various other bits and pieces. And then obviously you have the CodeSpring boilerplate as well, which is what we used to build all of this stuff. So we have, for example, in our app, we already have all of the accounts set up, which is really cool. We have actually obviously removed pricing, but you would also have the ability to upgrade and charge yearly or monthly pricing for your app. Now at the moment, you can get CodeSpring for £49 a month. I cannot guarantee it's going to stay at that. It may go up to £59 or £69 a month over the next few months and years as we're adding in new features. But if you grab CodeSpring subscription today, the link is down below. You're going to get access to all of those features that I showed you, plus all of those courses, plus you also get access to the boilerplate. And we also have a slideshow marketing feature, which you can go ahead and select any project that you're working on, run market research, and then you can actually generate carousels to post onto TikTok to automatically market your products for you. So just like that, you can have something set up so you can start marketing your app. So it's a start to finish, ready to go, full system to help you build, deploy, and get your first app built and marketed with users. So if you want to grab a subscription, it's £49 per month at the moment. The link is down below in the description. Once you grab that, you will be grandfathered in at that price. You'll never be charged any more. So it's probably good now to get in while it's still at £49. But you guys have been awesome. I will see you in the next video. If you have any other ideas or you want me to continue this tutorial, let me know down below in the comments.